Hello and welcome to my presentation on historical imperialism. This presentation is intended for Social Studies 10-1 students. In this presentation I will cover the definition of imperialism, the main motives of imperialism, followed by the lesser motives of imperialism. This map shows imperialistic powers and their claimed territories around the beginning of the 20th century. Imperialism is a term that refers to one country's domination of another country's economic, political, and cultural institutions. In other words, building an empire. Great Britain is the best example of an imperialistic country as its territories spanned the entire world. There are many reasons or motives for imperialism. In fact, there are three main motives: economic, strategic, and colonizing. And there were three lesser motives: aggressive, missionary, and leadership. All of these motives will be covered in this presentation. Out of the three main motives, the economic was usually the most important. The economic motives can be broken down into three different stages. The simplest stage, or a stage where countries went out to look for tribute or for loot. The more developed stage, where countries searched out raw materials to turn into finished product or markets. And then the most refined stage, where there was an actual economic benefit for both the colony and the parent country. The earliest Spanish explorers provide an example of the simplest stage. The Spaniards hoped to find gold and silver in the New World. They had a lust for loot and would take what they wanted regardless of the indigenous population. Unlike the simplest stage, the more developed stage was more interaction between the imperial country and their colony. Britain's economic interest in the New World reflects the more developed stage. Once southern plantations began to thrive, raw cotton was shipped to England, made into clothing, and then resold to the colonists at a profit. In the most refined stage, both the imperial country and colony grew economically with their interactions. Britain's promotion of the tea industry in India illustrates the most refined economic stage. The growth of tea on a mass scale provided widespread employment for Indians and a cheap and popular drink for the English people, a product the British could sell in Europe for a profit. It's important to note, though, that Great Britain still dominated India's economic, political, and cultural institutions. The strategic motive is the second main motive for imperialism. This motive is almost as important as the economic one. In the strategic motive, countries acquire other territory to protect the mother country, her colonies, and their lines of communication. On the picture on the right is Cecil Rhodes, a British explorer who helped build the telegraph line from Cairo to Cape Town. Another example of the strategic motive is Great Britain and Egypt in the late 19th century. Motivated mainly by the desire to protect her trade route to her most important colony of India, Great Britain entered into Egypt and built and controlled the Suez Canal. The last main motive for imperialism is the colonizing motive. Imperialistic countries needed space for its surplus population, its dissidents, or its criminal population. Australia was first colonized as a prison for Great Britain. Another example of the colonizing motive was the colony that was established in Georgia in 1732. British settlers who came to the New World included poor people in search for a better life, religious dissidents such as the Puritans, and criminals such as the one who established this colony. Three other motives, the less important of the ones we have already discussed, were complementary to imperialistic expansion. The first is the aggressive motive. This is when countries have a desire for revenge, excitement, power or prestige. They have the urge to trample weaker peoples, and they want to advertise their strength. European countries were Eurocentric, meaning they felt their way of life was better than everyone else's. Therefore, they practiced the missionary motive. They had a desire to convert other people's religion, culture, or way of life. The picture to your right is of Irish school teachers ready to embark to educate the colonies of Great Britain. Lastly, the imperial countries felt they had a leadership role to play because they felt a superior ability to provide orderly government, either as a permanent proprietor or as a temporary trustee. It's also known as the white man's burden. To summarize, most of Europeans' imperialistic expansion were based on economic, strategic, and colonizing motives, with lesser motives such as the aggressive motive, missionary, and leadership playing a lesser part. Thanks for watching.